Hello everyone, I am Kapila here, your English teacher, and today we'll take up the chapter The Lost Child from the book Moments. By now you must have learned how to download the book. For the link you can see the description. This chapter was written by Mulk Raj Anand, who was an Indian English writer. He wrote many short stories, novels, critical essays, and his writings were famous for the realistic portrayal of the poor in India. He also won the Sahitya Academy Award and the Padma Bhushan. Now, let us see what the story of this chapter is. The Lost Child, as the title itself tells us, is about a child who goes to a village fair along with his parents. On the way to the fair, he is attracted by the natural beauty that is there all around him, and then when he reaches the fair, again the colorful display articles there in the various shops, they attract him, and then he keeps on insisting the parents for one or the other thing. And when he reaches the roundabout go, there something happens. What is that? And then what is the result of it? Let us read it all. It was the festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. So it's a very happy time of celebration. So gaily clad is dressed, and humanity are humans. So it was a time of celebration. People were dressed in such clothes which tells us about celebration. And all these humans, some were walking and the others were in bullock carts, etc. And they were moving through the lanes and the alleys, the passage that is there between buildings. From there they were moving, from lanes they were moving, and all were moving towards some place. They were going somewhere, and it tells us their attire, their clothes tell us that it was a time of celebration, right? And it was the spring celebration there. "Come, child, come," called his parents as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart, even though he well knew the old cold stare of refusal in their eyes. So now the mother calls, the parent, they call the child, "Come, come." And the child was still, turning at the back. The toy shop was there and it was receding, it was going. He was moving, but his eyes were still lingering. They were staying behind only, looking at the toys. So walking, his feet were obedient, listening to the call of the parents. He started moving ahead, but he was still looking back at the toys. So he moved on, but he had a desire. He really wanted the toys, and he knew that his parents would not buy the toys for him. That he knew very well. He knew that it will be a refusal only, but still he could not suppress his desire. He could not keep quiet, and he had to ask his parents to buy him some toys. That was the desire that he had, looking at the beautiful toys which were displayed when he was on the way. "I want that toy," he pleaded. His father looked at him red-eyed, in his familiar tyrant's way. So very cruelly, his father looked at him, and with the anger in the eyes, and he knew this would be there. But still, he could not suppress, he could not keep it inside him, and he had to ask for the toy. He pleaded the parents, "Please buy the toy for me." His mother, melted by the free spirit of the day, was tender, but his mother was not that harsh. She was tender because it was festival time and the spirits were high, all were so happy. So that is why she was very soft, and she did not reply in that harsh manner as the father, or she did not give that harsh look because it was celebration time. And giving him her finger to hold, said, "Look, child, what is before you." It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold, as it swept across miles and miles of even land. So beautiful description of the mustard fields is given over here. It appeared as if gold, melted gold was there, spread everywhere. Large areas of field, they were completely filled with the mustard flowers which were there. So the mother was not harsh, and just to divert the attention of the child, she said, look what is there, and then she showed the mustard fields. And beautiful comparison has been done by the author here with molten gold. The yellow color of the mustard flowers, they've been compared to molten gold. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with his gaze, till one of them would still its wings and rest, and he would try to catch it, but it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air. When he had almost caught it in his hands, then his mother gave a cautionary call, "Come, child, come onto the footpath." So he was lost into the fields, and he saw what he saw. He saw the dragonflies over there with the purple wings. They were flying, and in between they were intercepting. Here the bee was flying, and here the black bee was flying, and the butterfly was flying, and from here the dragonfly was. So they were clashing like that, and he was gazing. He was just looking at those. He was wanting that one of them should be still, right? Stop flying so that he may go and catch. So when one of them would stop flying and would be still, he would hurriedly go to catch it, but by the time he reached there, it would fly again, flapping its wings. And then suddenly that would be the time when the mother would call him, and again he had to follow the parents there on the footpath. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while, being however soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. So now, because the parents, they called, the mother called, he hurriedly came, and then he was moving abreast as he was moving ahead of them for some time. But then slowly and gradually he started lingering behind, because the parents kept on walking, and he was attracted by the insects which were coming out in huge numbers. They were swarming, they were teeming out, they were swarming out in huge numbers. They were coming out from their hiding places because now it was sunshine. So they were coming out for the warmth of the sun. So he was attracted by them because he's a young child. He gets attracted very easily to colorful things and many things which are there in nature, like the insects, the flies, the bees, the flowers. So he gets attracted very easily because he's a young child. "Come, child, come," his parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. So by the time he was busy there looking at the insects coming out, the parents, they had taken a seat there at the edge of the well. Okay, so there they were sitting, and then because there was a lot of shade of trees over there, so they sat there and they waited, and they called the child to come there. A shower of flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hand. But lo, he heard the cooing of doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, "The dove, the dove." The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. So see, such little attention these children have towards a certain thing. When he was there with the insects, he was observing them. When he was with the dragonflies attracted him. So his attraction is being diverted very quickly towards the different things which were present in the nature. So when the mother called him there towards the grove, he went there, and some flowers, the petals of the flowers, because of the wind, they fell down. So he started collecting them in the hands. And then when he suddenly heard the cooing of the dove, he forgot the petals which were there in the hand. He just left the petals and he went in search of the dove, and he started calling to the parents, "The dove, the dove." He got excited. So the children, they get attracted by various things very easily, and very quickly they are able to break their attention towards a certain thing. "Come, child, come," they called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him up They took the narrow, winding path which led to the fair through the mustard fields. So, looking for the dove, the child went towards the wild capers. Now, capers are small buds which are used for pickle. Right, people eat the pickle of that. So they grow in wild bushes there near the side of the banyan tree. The child went there. So the parents, they collected the child from there, and then they moved towards the footpath that led them to the mustard fields. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs, converging to the whirlpool of the fair. So now, as they neared, what they saw was that so many footpaths were from the village. They were coming into the fields, and from there they were all meeting at one point as if it was a whirlpool of people. So crowd was coming from all the footpaths, all sides of the fields, and they were meeting at the fair, the ground where the fair was there. So it seemed like a whirlpool, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. So he was both repelled also and fascinated also. He was thinking, oh my God, such a lot of crowd is there. And then he was fascinated by the colorful things and the stalls and so many things in the fair. So both the kinds of feeling were there in the child. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and a crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many colored sweets, decorated with leaves of silver and gold. You must have seen sweets, and on the top of the sweet, on the topmost layer, there is a golden covering or the silver covering, those golden and silver leaves, and then you arrange them very properly in a pyramid style or a triangle style. So such was the decoration of the sweets, and that hawker was out the names of the sweets also, barfi lelo and rasgulla lelo, like that he was calling out. The child stared open-eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi. That was his favorite sweet. I want that barfi, he slowly murmured, but he half knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. He loved the barfi and he really wanted to have the barfi, and he pleaded for it. But he knew that the parents are not going to listen to it. They would not buy the barfi because they were poor, so they couldn't do that. And what they would say was that he was greedy and he was asking for the barfi. So he knew the answer, and to his own self he told the answer, and then he moved on. But he really loved the barfi. A flower seller hawked a garland of gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn, so he couldn't stop himself. He really wanted to have that gulmohar garland. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaped and half murmured, I want that garland. But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers because they would say that they were cheap. So, without waiting for an answer, he moved on. So every time he knew what the answer would be. The parents would not buy him anything. They would not actually tell the child that they were very poor, they did not have any money to buy. But yes, they would give various reasons, and he knew that if he would ask for the gulmohar garland, he would get an answer that it was cheap. So he moved on. He did not say anything. He didn't wait for the answer to come from the parents. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of the silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on further. So again, when he moved further, he saw that on a pole there were colorful balloons, silken colors were there, and he really wanted to have it. But he knew the answer, that the parents wouldn't buy it, and they would tell him that he was old and he could not play with the balloons there. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. So beautifully, the music that was being played by the snake charmer on the flute has been described, and the ears of the snake are not visible, but it appeared as if it was feeling the music, and the music is being compared to the beautiful melodious sound that is produced by the water in the waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music, as the snake charmer played, he proceeded farther. So he went there to listen to the music, but he knew that the parents had told him earlier only that such music was coarse music. It was raw, it was bad. So it was not to be heard, and that is why he went farther. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout, please, father, mother. So he really loved to see those children who were there on the roundabout, mothers, fathers, and they were shrieking and they were enjoying and laughing there on the roundabout, all going round and round. So he could not stop himself, and this time he made he gathered all the courage, and then he requested to the parents that he really wanted to go there, and he called his father and mother for it. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of him, he turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. So when he did not get the reply, he looked here, there, front, back, everywhere he looked, but he could not find the parents. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. Mother, father! Tears rolled down from his eyes. Hot and fierce, his flushed face was convulsed with fear. So, he was fearful. He was frightful where his parents were, and all red in that fear he had become, and he really was running from here to there in search of his parents. There was some sort of a thing that was there inside his body. Panic-stricken, he ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed, so he cried, and in loud voice he was calling out mother and father. His yellow turban became untied, and his clothes became muddy. So he had lost all his senses. He had lost to take care of himself. His clothes became muddy here, there, he was there, and the yellow turban that he was wearing, that also fell down. So he was not bothered about anything. He was just running for his parents, and he was wanting to search them and find them. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. So this happens to children often. They keep on crying, and slowly and gradually, after they have cried for long, then they start sobbing. Without noise, they cry. So similarly, because he had cried for a long time, so now he had started sobbing, and he thought that he was defeated because he was not able to find the parents. On the green grass, he could see through his filmy eyes men and women talking. Filmy eyes which had the layer of the tears. Often it happens when we are very sad, from inside we have that layer of tears, so that a film of thin watery tears was there on the eyes, and through that he could see that on the grass men and women were sitting there. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. So now the laughs and the talks of the people, he was not interested in them. So that is why he's saying just for the sake of laughing and talking, they were talking, and he was very much bothered only to find his parents. He kept on looking here and there so that he could see his parents, but he could not see his parents in those groups of people who were sitting here and there on the grass. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine, to which people seemed to be crowding. So there was a temple there, and the people were crowding there in great numbers. They were entering into the temple. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering, mother, father, near the entrance to the temple. However, the crowd became very thick Men jostled each other. So they were hitting each other. They were trying to find passage into the shrine or the temple. Heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. So they were very heavy men, the ones which were very stout and healthy. The poor child struggled to thrust away between their feet, but knocked to and fro by the brutal movements. So he was so young, so small, so through their feet he was trying to find the way, but they were not bothered, the people, and he was thrown here and there by the brutal, which would cause harm to the child, which would be even taking the life of the child. Such movements threw him off the feet of those heavy people. They threw him here and there. He might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice. If he would have not shouted so loudly, he would have been trampled. People would have put their feet on him and he would have been smashed. Had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, "Father, mother," a man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arm. So hearing his loud cry, a man from that crowd, he came from that crowd which was overflowing. He came from there and he bent down, he stooped down and he picked up the child in his arms. "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" the man asked as he steered clear of the mass. So he made a way out of the people, the crowd there, steering masses that making way through the crowd. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, "I want my mother, I want my father." So now he was not bothered about anything. All the interest that he had in the things, he had lost it all, and he just cried, "I want my father, I want my mother." And the man was inquiring about it. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "Will you have a ride on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." So the man, he really wanted to console the child and, lessen his pain that was there and stop his crying. So that is why he took the child to the roundabout and he asked if he would like to take a ride on the horse. But he only cried and sobbed and he only said, "I want my father, I want my mother." So now that roundabout, which earlier he was so much interested in taking a ride, he had lost all the interest in taking a ride on that. The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded, but the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double-pitched strain, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. "Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon?" he persuasively asked. Right? So earlier he was so much bothered to listen to the music of the snake charmer. He really wanted the colorful balloons. And now when the man was taking away to divert his attention and intentionally he was asking him, "Would you buy this?" So he just completely denied all these things. He was not interested. He only cried in the loudest voice that he could that he wanted his father and his mother. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. So taking him, he took him to the flower seller also. "Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck?" So he even did that. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob. Repeated the same thing. "I want my mother, I want my father." Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. "What sweets would you like, child?" he said. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." So he thought that he should be able to divert his attention as he was there yearning for the parents. The man took him to the sweet shop also, and he offered him sweets. But then also the child who was earlier yearning for the sweet, the barfi, the same child had lost the interest in all those things, and he only wanted father and mother. So that is the pain when you are separated from your parents. You understand the value, because you feel very protected when they are around you. You feel loved and cared of, and you know that everything will be all right. So no matter how they are, they were denying to him all the things, but still that protection, that feeling that you have when the parents are there with you, that had taken away all the interest, because the parents were not there. So now he was not interested in any of the things that were there in the fair. The most important things in this chapter are the things that attracted the attention of the child while he was on the way to the fair. And the other one is when he reached the fair, what all things they attracted the child. So if we come to the point where he was attracted on the way, then it is the toy shop, the mustard fields, the dragonflies, the petals raining down, the insects swarming out, the doves cooing, all those things are there. That drew the attention of the child. And if we come to the fair, what all things they drew the attention of the child? It is the sweetmeat shop, then it is the snake charmer, it is the flower seller there, then it is the balloon seller, the roundabout. All these things, they attracted the child. So this you have to remember, that the child, he got attracted and so easily his attention was diverted. But once he lost his parents, all this attention was there only on finding the parents. So the parents are the most expensive things for the child and the most loved things. He was posing as if he wanted these things were the most lovable things, and the most yearning was there for these things. But when he lost the parents, then he came to understand that he yearned only for the parents and not for these things. Now let us do the question answers. Question 1. What are the things the child sees on his way to the fair? Why does he lag behind? So the things that the child sees on the way, I've already told you, but let us revise it once again. It's the toys in the toy shop, the mustard fields, then the grove, and the petals of flowers raining down from the grove, the dragonflies, the honey, the black bee, the butterflies, the insects swarming out from their hiding places, and the cooing of the doves there. So all these things, they attract the child. These are the things that he sees while he's on the way to the fair, and he lags behind because he is so much fascinated by these things that he stops to watch them there by the time the parents, they move on. Question 2. In the fair, he wants many things. What are they? Why does he move on without waiting for an answer? In the fair, the child wants many things, such as barfi there from the sweetmeat shop, then flowers, gulmohar garland from the flower seller, then the balloons from the man who was selling the balloons there. Then he wanted to listen to the chorus music which was being played by the snake charmer, and he also wanted to have a ride on the roundabout. But without waiting for the answer, he kept on moving further, because he knew that every time the parents would give him one or the other kind of a reason and would not listen to his pleading and would not fulfill his desire, right? Question 3. When does he realize that he has lost his way? How have his anxiety and insecurity been described? So when he made the bold request to his parents to take a ride on the roundabout and waited for a reply to come, and when he turned back, he did not, when he could not listen to any reply from the parents, he turned back, he looked here and there on all sides, and he did not see his parents. That was the time when he realized that he had lost his way. And it has been beautifully described by the writer here, that all his face was flushed with the convulsing fear that was there. Hot and fiery and red with anxiety he was, tears rolling down there on his cheeks, and he was just crying and wailing in the name of father and mother. Question 4. Why does the lost child lose interest in the things that he had wanted earlier? The lost child lost interest in all the things that he wanted earlier because without the parents' company, all these things were of no use to him. He felt the comfort, peace and solace and protectiveness. He felt safe when he was in the company of the parents. So without parents, he did not want any of those things. So he lost the interest. The first interest of a child is his parents, and after that come the other things. Question 5. What do you think happens in the end? Does the child find his parents? So now this you should be writing on your own. What do you think? What kind of an end would you like to give to this story? What do you think that the man must be? I am personally giving my opinion that it should be ending like this, that the man must have taken the child to the police station there and the parents were also found over there, and I would like to give a happy ending. But if you want to give any other end to the story, you can give that. Okay, so you write whatever you think that what must have happened after this, after the man was having the child. Was he able to meet the parents or he was not able? What happened? What do you think? So write about that. That's all for now. See you in the next video. Stay home, stay safe.